Not all racetracks run in circles. At one end of a quarter mile of asphalt, there's a timing track, an electric timer. At the other end, automobiles designed to do only one thing: accelerate for that 1/4 of a mile. That's the heart of drag racing. And thousands of fans who visit national meets like this one at Dallas are able to see some of the wildest sights in the entire world of auto racing. Drag racing is simple and complicated. To win, a car must travel the quarter mile in the shortest elapsed time. A car competes against others in its own class, not necessarily against the car in the next lane. Winners qualify for later events. Losers go home. There's a 60-page rule book to explain the details. 500,000 participants are active in competition sponsored by the National Hot Rod Association. More spectators view these events than any other kind of racing. Although top prizes usually go to professionals who spend weeks and months preparing their cars, there are more than 700 entries at this spring national, including many amateurs. Each car is marked to indicate its class, which is determined by type of fuel, advertised power and weight, modifications, supercharging, and other factors. No one ever loved dog or horse or wife as much as these racers love their cars. As in stock car racing, there's strong competition between the major car builders. Their aim is to impress young performance-minded car buyers. Every car gets at least one chance to run against the electric timer. There's a purse of $192,000. This tower is the nerve center of the Dallas Spring Nationals. Because timing is critical, an elaborate electronic system has been set up. In the timing tower, a counter automatically starts when the car begins its run. At the end of the quarter mile, a set of electric eyes determine the winner, the elapsed time, and the top speed. Most of the cars in competition are stock or superstock. That is, showroom cars carefully tuned or those equipped with high-performance options. A new and exciting class is known as funny cars. These are high-performance vehicles made to look like ordinary sedans. Inside, there's nothing ordinary about them. Special protective clothing is required in these lightweight powerhouses. These are vehicles of the space age. A sedan-like body is made of fiberglass and weighs only 150 pounds. The funny cars can race the quarter mile in less than 7.5 seconds. Top speed, 190 miles an hour. This much power can be lethal when out of control. Although one driver was seriously injured, the other walked away. Drag racing, despite this, remains one of the safest of all sports, with few injuries or fatalities in thousands of miles of competition. The competition continues as the rails come to the line. They, too, are divided into classes, depending on type of fuel, supercharging, and power-to-weight ratios. Some of the supercharged rails are rated at 1,500 horsepower. The The best of these cars are able to run the quarter mile in 6 7/10 seconds with top speeds of more than 225 miles an hour. In this sport, victory is measured in thousandths of a second. Low tire pressure gives better bite coming off the starting line. It's expensive, but so is everything else about this game. Auto engineers once thought that 200 miles an hour from a standing start within a quarter mile was physically impossible. But their words were drowned long ago by the roar of engines. Drag racing, although still young, is clearly a major sport in the world of auto racing.
Some of these people, Danny Angaius in particular, runs a car, and it looks as though the car is out of control for 1,320 feet, but he runs that thing faster than anybody else has been able to run a funny car this year.
The American Hot Rod Association Spring Nationals at Bristol, Tennessee, brings together 51,000 fans for whom the greatest sight in the world is a blown funny car or AA fueler going through the lights with everything wound out tight. During 1969, the quickest funny car in the business is driven by Danny Angaius. His Mustang is built and maintained by the legendary Mickey Thompson. The heart of this torpedo is a Ford 427 cubic inch single overhead cam V8. Supercharged and burning nitromethane fuel, the engine develops 1,500 horsepower. Angaius' funny car record is 6.96 seconds and 207 miles an hour for the quarter mile.
It's been an unreal season for us. We've won over 90% of the races that we participated in and won out of the 12 national events that we were very interested in. We've won 11 of the 12 so far. Well, I think it takes three main things. It takes a very good piece of equipment. When I say equipment, that's the chassis, engine, mechanical features. It takes an excellent mechanic, and it takes a good driver. When you spin the tires that lays rubber in the ground, we usually try and back right over the same marks. And the combination of the traction compound and rubber laying on the ground will usually drop you about 1,500ths of a second if you can stay right on the same marks.
Afternoon, drag racing's process of elimination has weeded out all but Angaius and Leonard Hughes. 1/100th of a second separates their best times. Now they will face each other for the funny car title.
figure that the normal reaction time for a person is about 15/100ths of a second. It takes about another 1/10 of a second to get the tires all wound up and the drive shaft all wound up and everything. So you're working with 25/100ths of a second. And if you can split the difference between a light going on and off, it takes a half a second for the light to go on and off, and it takes you 25/100ths of a second to get moving. It's all something that's laid out before you, and you leave when the light's halfway off. I don't think there's anything magic, but it's really anticipation. Time comes to leave. You leave.
When the time came for Danny Ungaius to leave, he left. And he left in time to take the AHRA Spring Nationals funny car title with him.
I made a prediction one time a drag racing car would run 150 miles an hour in a quarter of a mile. Some of the famous magazine writers at that time poked fun at me. And I actually believe that we will see someday a 5-second quarter of a mile run in over 300.
Labor Day weekend, this 230-acre facility known as Indianapolis Raceway Park is the home of an event as important and in some respects larger than the Indy 500, the Nationals Championship Drag Races. From 42 states in Canada, they trek to the Nationals as they have for 15 years. 1,400 contestants and 100,000 fans will for 5 days be a part of the largest automotive competition event in the world. There are drag races every weekend from coast to coast, but this is the Nationals. For the devout, it's the World Series, Super Bowl, Olympics, and Kentucky Derby all rolled into one. Long lines start forming early in the week, and inspection continues until class runoffs. No Nationals entrant escapes a thorough pre-race technical inspection. There's 102 official classes of competition. The rules are explicit and enforced to the letter. With this volume, there is bound to be rejections and panic situations. What to do? We're 1,000 miles from home, and the tech boss says changes must be made. For the trailer that took such a beating getting you to Indy is going to need healing if it's to get you home. That's when the Hearst Safety Center looks as good as an oasis in the desert. Of the many contributions Hearst Performance is making to drag racing, the Hearst Safety Center at major NHRA events is probably the most appreciated by competitors. Staffed by over 30 Hearst-trained experts, this Hearst Aid Center can fill most any prescription. Cutting, welding, grinding, drilling, supplying a hard-to-find bolt or clamp.
figuring out how to add a little weight to make just the right class. And the famous Shifty Doctor is on hand to ensure that Hurst shifters, Hurst Earhart disc brakes, and Schaefer clutches all perform the way they were engineered to perform, flawlessly. After inspection and classification is completed, it's straight to the working pits where crews quickly begin the critical business of pre-race preparation and tuning. Much of this work won't make the machine run one bit faster, but will hopefully increase reliability. There's no second chances in this sport. Just about any mechanical failure on the track means sure defeat. After an initial time trial run, most racers start making many changes in an effort to whittle down that elapsed time. Different gear ratios, ignition timing, carburetor jetting, tire pressure, and a bag full of other tricks. Of the 1,400 cars entered, only about 180 will qualify for final eliminations. At this point, everyone's mind is on winning that class or grabbing a low elapsed time to earn a guaranteed spot in the Labor Day Tournament of Champions. As qualifying begins, the national scene is suddenly transformed into an almost psychedelic kaleidoscope of action.
Single important element in making a run drag racing would be the way the driver reacts to the Christmas tree.
I feel the most important thing is got to get the right light and do your best.
Whoever calls the light the best and all, and if you're within, tolerances, you'll win.
Move first and still have a green light.
The most important element in racing would be your alertness.
Be able to run 1/10 of a second under the record. That'd be the fastest you could run without running out of the bracket.
The Christmas tree is the unbiased starting line judge. A countdown of 5 amber lights, spaced at half-second intervals, gives drivers fair warning of the impending green. A too-soon leave draws a red light and disqualification during eliminations. On the surface, driving a drag racing machine might seem as simple as a highway cruise. Not so. Staging and starting properly takes skill and uncanny reflexes. Throttle and clutch must be coordinated perfectly. Too much throttle and the tires spin freely in a smoky display of wasted horsepower. Too little horsepower and the engine bogs or sends its mount up into a nerve-shattering wheel stand, which could mean a stretch in Hurst aid for chassis repair. A combination of phenomenal traction, perfect atmospheric conditions, and the nation's hottest cars and drivers produced 4 days of qualifying such as the sport has never seen before. As elapsed times dropped lower than the wildest predictions, more nitro was the battle cry, and huge doses of the potent nitromethane fuel got the job done. But not without heart-stopping engine explosions. Flaming supercharger explosions filled the air with debris on several occasions during the heat of qualifying. Lucky was the driver who wasn't momentarily blinded by hot oil as pistons literally disintegrated. starting line crew often spotted trouble before it happened. Control was difficult even for the most experienced driver. At the close of qualifying, the quickest field in history was assembled. 32 cars qualified between 6.43 and 6.73 seconds. The pit area was strewn with broken motors. The backbone of the sport and the Nationals is the stocker. Even in the most flawlessly prepared car, it still takes a driver to cut the light and shift his way into the Nationals winner's circle. Like daily transportation cars, plenty of hours and dollars have been devoted to their preparation. Of the hundreds entered, only class winners get a berth in the elimination finals. Race day, the sun barely up over the Indiana landscape, thousands of fans crowded into Raceway Park for the finals of the 15th Annual Nationals. Like the contestants, they've come from all over the country. Early arrivals strolled through the pits for $1 million car show. Better hurry, lady. It's standing room only. Drivers and crews joke about the trade paper forecast, but the tension is quite evident. The pre-race parade shows off the top fuel qualifiers and some pretty girls. A publisher from Ohio. Horse breeders from Virginia. Miss Hurst Golden Shifter. The Nationals Queen. And even a king, Big Daddy Don Garlits himself. 7 national champions will be crowned this day. Outstanding race highlights leading to the finals demonstrate the type of action the fans have come to see. And Funny Car Eliminator had them up and cheering their favorites. That's Speed King Mickey Thompson pouring the traction-improving bleach down for driver Danny Ungaius. The Mach 1 stages against the Camaro of schoolteacher Kelly Chadwick from Texas. An anxious moment for trackside photographers as Chadwick narrowly misses the rail before shutting off. Ungaius flashes through in 7.38 seconds. Chevy fans are backing Bruce Larson of Pennsylvania. He's drawn the quickest car of the meet, Don Schumacher's Barracuda from Illinois. Schumacher's engine expires while Larson charges to a great 735, 192-mile-per-hour wind, and the crowd loves it. Connie Kalita's Bounty Hunter Mustang now tangles with Californian Rich Sarunian, wheeling Big John Masmanian's Candy Apple Barracuda. Ford Cammer versus Plymouth Hemi. Tremendous hole shot by Michigan's Kalita, but the Barracuda is charging on the other end, and it's Big John moving to the semifinals by a headlight, 753, 199. Top fuel, round 1, Don Garlits meets Benny Osborne. The defending national champ from Florida accidentally shuts off his motor while moving to the starting line, leaving Osborne a solo blast. Bob Reese appears to have Larry Dixon covered at mid-course until a booming blower explosion cancels Reese's chances and almost sends him out of control. Dixon wins at 673. Out of the burnout box in round 3 comes East Coast champ Tom Rayleigh to meet Steve Carboni. car owner Allison Lee removes Rayleigh's fuel-covered top goggles. Both staged carefully for a critical race. Carboni was runner-up at last year's event. This is the strongest national showing ever for the Lees and Rayleigh. Carboni blows his engine at the finish. Rayleigh wins 651 to 654. Rayleigh returns to meet Don Prudhomme in the semifinals. Rayleigh's mouth sounds stout. Ominous smoke emits from the California Pro's Hemi. Rayleigh loses traction. It's all Prudhomme. Scattering an engine in the lights into the strain of a 651 ET, 223 miles per hour. Can Prudhomme repair in time? Either this man, Californian Kelly Brown, or Jim Paoli of Illinois will face Prudhomme in the finals. Brown stages Leland Kolb's immaculate fueler. Paoli loses on a red light but stays on it until an exploding floater plate almost cuts the car in half. Emergency crews are on the scene before Paoli even stops rolling. Of all the dangers inherent to top fuel racing, driveline explosions are the most feared by drivers. He's okay. Action now swings to the hottest of Detroit's high-performance cars. Class champions battling under the handicap system for the Superstock Eliminator title. The latest supercars from Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, and American Motors. Plymouth Pro Ronnie Sox must overtake Dale Hooper's Mustang from Illinois. Barracuda at 1043, 122.61. Dodge mainstay Dick Landy moves to the line to face the East Coast Ford challenge of Charlie Johnson. Johnson leaves first. Landy sets sail and passes for the win light. The winningest Superstock driver of the year, North Carolina's Ronnie Sox, prepares to meet his second Superstock challenger. Sox and partner Buddy Martin make up one of the sport's most professional teams. Jerry Harvey of Indianapolis, himself a former NHRA champion, is one of the few Fords left that has the potential to stop Chrysler Corporation's blitz. Both these clean-cut, articulate gentlemen are typical of drag racing's new breed. Sox from behind at 10:55, 120 miles per hour. Plymouth's newest full-time pro, Don Grother of Oklahoma City, pits his automatic Hemi Barracuda against Southern Californian Wiley Cossey. Cossey grabs a red light, Grother an automatic winner. Sox is back in the semifinals to face the Midwest's toughest, Ron Mancini's Dodge. Ronnie has to go all out and wins at 1040, 132 miles per hour. Funny Cars semifinals. Rich Cerronian dons his breather mask to face the National's fastest funny car from Louisiana, Candies and Hughes, with Leonard Hughes in the cockpit. Both drivers are ready, and the crowd knows this will be a classic. Cerronian by inches at 725, 207 to Hughes 728, 200.44. Chevy fans hope Bruce Larson is up to the challenge issued by Danny Ungaius in the Mach 1. Ungaius screams out of the bleach. Larson has red-lighted, but still both cars scream the full quarter mile. Danny into the finals against Big John with a 727, 203.61. Nationals action moves to the spectacular Super Eliminator category. California's legendary Pure Hell AA fuel altered moves up under the capable control of Rich Guasco. 1,500 horsepower of fuel dragster engine in a short wheelbase roadster. A real challenge for the best handler. Leaving first on the handicap start will be the gas-burning roadster of Ron Ellis from Michigan. Let's ride with Pure Hell. Can't match Ellis's 8.36 EP. Hall stage, defending champ meets Ohio George Montgomery's blown Mustang. Montgomery moves to the finals on stage's red light. The winner in this one faces Montgomery in the finals. Ron Ellis's 844 stays ahead of John Hansen's dragster from Milwaukee. Street Eliminator highlights. Dick Landy's modified production Dodge has drawn Carl Houchin Chevy from Kentucky. Landy catches up and wins at 1082, 127 miles per hour. Californian Landy came right back to meet Carol Cottle's 55 Chevy C-modified production from Texas. Landy encounters difficulties and the talented Texan wins at 11:52, 115 miles per hour. The finals begin. Super Eliminator. Ohio George Montgomery's Mustang against Ron Ellis's record-holding Trick T from Michigan. Overhead Cam Ford versus blown Hemi Chrysler. An 8:59, 164 mile per hour win. Ohio George, the national champion. Superstock finals. Can Dave Wren of Missoula, Montana stop Ron Sox from winning his second consecutive NHRA title? Sox blast straight and true, while back at the start, Dave Wren turns off dangling a broken drive shaft. Sox and Martin now own every major title except the World Finals, and that may be theirs before the year is out. Street Eliminator. Carol Cottle's high-revving 55 Chevy stages opposite Glenn Self's six-cylinder from Durant, Oklahoma. David holds off Goliath as Glenn Self earns the Nationals in 12.35 seconds. Tom Neha's Chevrolet wagon from California meets Bill Morgan of New Jersey. $6,000 at stake in the stock finals. Notice something peculiar at the finish? Let's look and stop action. As they near the finish, Neha appeared to be the winner until he jammed on the brakes inches before the finish line, giving the win to Morgan. Why? Only Tom Neha can answer that one. Big John's Barracuda against Mickey Thompson's Mustang in the funny car finals. The Barracuda cuts the light too thin, giving Danny Ungaiest his biggest win. Suiting up in the staging lanes are the two finalists for Top Gas Eliminator, D.A. Santuzzi of Pennsylvania and Phil Hobbs of Kokomo, Indiana. In a stranger-than-fiction story, Santucci almost perished on a qualifying run when acceleration forces lodged his chewing gum in his windpipe. Though unable to breathe, he set low ET on gas and was taken to the hospital unconscious with what attendants thought was a heart attack. Now, one day later, here he is in the finals. Bob's red light. Santucci knows he's the champ and flashes the victory sign. What a story. A 1-hour rain squall has given Don Perdome ample time to install a new engine for the Top Fuel Finals. Kelly Brown hopes to change his bridesmaid status right here and now. Both are from California and both utilize late-model Hemi engines from the Chrysler Corporation. A 50-mile-per-hour push start brings the monsters to life. In 6.51 seconds, Don Perdome becomes the second driver in 15 years to ever win the Nationals twice.
Another dimension. Two cars dice for a quarter mile. Insanely powerful machines pushed to the bizarre limits of performance. Machines with one purpose, to conquer the formidable barrier of time. Labor Day at Indianapolis. The furious excitement of the National Drag Racing Championships. Professional driver Charlie Allen guides his monstrous machine toward the starting line to begin his personal battle against time.
I've usually never stressed to go fast. I've always just liked to win races and go quick. But most of the cars now, to go quick, you're having to run close to 200 miles an hour or over 200 miles an hour most of the time. These cars, as you know, have a tremendous amount of horsepower. We've got about 1,600 horsepower, which is comparable to what they have in the fuel dragsters. And as you know, they're fiberglass body cars, so they look like stock cars. I think it's extremely exciting to drive one. It's been sort of an evolution with me. I started driving stockers in 1965, and each year we've gone a little faster and a little faster, and I haven't really noticed the change as being a drastic, all of a sudden I've got 1,600 horsepower change. In 1965 we had 450, 500 horsepower, and then it went to 700 horsepower and on its way up. So it hasn't been a big change for me to get in a car like this and drive it, but it is very, very exciting. The business of drag racing is very hard. It's a lot of work, many long hours, a lot of concentration, and a lot of promoting. And if you don't you better do them all or you won't be a success in it.
The past turns into future when the red light turns to green. I can make it happen in my time machine. Time's frozen by motion, speed can almost make me blind. Heat inside my helmet nearly bends my mind. Tires are screaming, mid smoke and fire I'm dreaming of the someday when no time will pass at all.
Indianapolis Raceway Park is little more than a strip of asphalt, cluttered with fierce, flame-belching automobiles, driven and maintained by men whose love affair with machinery is legendary. Nearly 2,000 of them have come to Indy to participate in the National Hot Rod Association's annual championships and to race, in brief, flat-out bursts for more than $100,000 in prize money and trophies in a myriad of classes and categories.
10.77.
The challenge is simple: to travel the quarter-mile track in the briefest possible time. It is an exercise in raw horsepower, meaning that engines are stressed via supercharging, exotic tuning, and special fuels to the outer limits of durability, and sometimes beyond. Once the potent mixtures have been loaded into the fuel tanks, the car is driven through a bath of household bleach in order to cleanse the tires of foreign matter that might impede traction. When success or failure is based on particles of seconds, nothing is left to chance. The competition is so fierce that many teams are driven to the use of volatile space-age fuels in their quest for power. Engine life is measured in terms of seconds, merely long enough to thrust the machines 1,320 feet in a cataclysmic burst of energy. Operating under such extreme stresses, engine failure occurs with alarming frequency, often in a shower of flame. Although this driver escapes injury, similar mishaps take 2 lives at Indy and destroy thousands of dollars in expensive machinery. In a sport noted for its high standards of safety, the struggle against time reaches the outer limits. funny cars, as they're called, operate in a limbo between fantasy and reality. Externally, they resemble normal street automobiles, but their thin fiberglass shells cover sparse tubular frames and gigantic engines. They're nearly as fast as the pure dragsters, and their wicked displays of noise and speed make them great favorites among the crowd. A pair of cars and drivers work their way through the elimination round. One final race between a pair of California pros remains. Danny Ungaius, driving a machine that resembles a Mustang sports coupe, will face Rich Saroyan at the wheel of a sparkling red Barracuda-bodied creation. The two drivers' rivalry is old and intense. Their cars' speeds are almost equal.
Saroyan has red-lighted. Rich Saroyan red light. The winner is Danny Ungaius. Mickey Thompson wins. Let's read the numbers. A lap time for Big John.
Saroyan appears to win, but has left the line a millisecond early, causing his disqualification. Although he makes the run with an elapsed time of 7.24 seconds with a speed of 204 miles per hour, his error in judgment cost him the race. The winner, who drives a car belonging to retired racing champion Mickey Thompson, takes the championship, while his time for the quarter mile is slower, 7.47 seconds. Drag racing demands great speed, but punishes the overeager who violate its fail-safe electronic starting system. Today, Danny Ungaius observed rules and won, ironically by being slower. The backbone of drag racing is formed by the stock class automobiles, cars that closely resemble those driven on the street. Although slower than the dragsters, they face the same challenge, to run the quarter mile faster than the competition. While many of the stock class drivers are weekend amateurs, the men who dominate the action are full-time professionals. One such pro is a burly veteran named Dick Landy.
I enjoy the Superstock racing myself, and that's probably the biggest reason that I'm going to stick in it. I've been into funny cars, and I enjoyed them, but I enjoy the Superstockers a lot more. We have the competition in the Superstockers. Instead of having 10, 15 cars, we've got 80 or 90 to contend with. The racing itself, I enjoy a lot more than I do the preparation. Let's put it that way. Preparation's a lot of hard work. I believe probably that the average individual who does it as a hobby, I would say it's at least 80%. They spend their whole lives working. Imagine their wives and families get pretty upset at them sometimes, but it's more of a family thing with them. Myself, it's a business. We do it day in, day out, and hire people to do the job.
Landy is knocked out of contention in an elimination round, while another top pro, Ronnie Sox of Burlington, North Carolina, moves into the final. Sox's job of winning the Superstock Championship becomes a simple one when his opponent, Dave Wren of Missoula, Montana, experiences car failure on the starting line.
The drive shaft, let's go, and your champion is Sox and Martin, 10 points.
While the racing goes on in spurts of noise on the track, the zany scene that is Indy flows in a colorful parade of flamboyant people and spectacular machines. Behind the pop art at Indy lies the deadly serious world of fuel dragster competition. A world filled with driving greats like Don the Snake Prudhomme and Don Big Daddy Garland.
I've been doing it now for about 8 years, and every year they get faster and stronger, and they come out with new equipment and 2-speed transmissions for fuel dragsters, which a couple of years ago you never even think of something like that. So it does excite me every year. It's something new to happen, and it's something new to look forward to.
The cars are turning today with the 650s and the 230-mile-an-hour runs. The horsepower has to be fantastic. It may be approaching 1,700 horsepower on some of these cars that are really turning fast times.
Within about 6 months ago, a couple of fellows dropped into the 650s and 660s, and I thought that was fantastic. But when you come out here to a national event where we got #1 clocks and timing it and run one, that's when you do it.
In this sport as it is right now, the machine probably is playing about 20% of the performance of the cars, and I'd say the man is about 80. Now, when drag racing first got started, the machine played about 80% and the driver about 20, and it has moved to the new position in the last, say, 5 years, because it's so important how the driver drives his machine and responds to the way the machine reacts.
When I used to drive a car from somebody before I paid for it for myself, I used to think it was about 50-50, but now I'm afraid it's about 70-30 for the machine. You've got to have the top running machine to compete, especially against people like Garlitz and Tom McEwen and so on. It's when you come to the start line, you better be ready, and so you got to have the good equipment.
They've gotten cars out of the junkyards, old model cars, I'm talking about old model, I mean, 10, 12 years old. And they've just completely hampered these cars. They ride on trailers. They get worked on 7 days a week. No dust can settle on these cars. They never go out into the rain.
About 2 years ago, I guess it was then now, I had full desires to go to Indianapolis. I wanted to drive a speedway car, but drag racing is growing with such leaps and bounds till I have no time to do anything else, and I'm building a funny car right now, and I'm building another field dragster, so it's really hard to get out of it, plus I love it.
This is the world Prudhomme loves. Speeds over 230 miles per hour, brutal G-loads punishing his body, and the fearsome challenge of trying to control a machine that resembles a guided missile more than an automobile.
David Chenevert, a slow 702, 194.38.
Struggle against the clock continues as men thunder down the short strip of pavement like artillery shells. time machines reduce racing to the most basic dimension. It is a flat-out proposition, without mercy for the opposition or one's equipment. Sometimes things break under this oppressive strain. In the semi-final race, Prudhomme wins, but destroys his engine in the process and appears through for the day. Frantic work by his crew, plus a slight reprieve due to a rain shower, give him time to install a replacement engine. With his best engine ruined, Prudhomme must race for the championship, top fuel eliminator, against a hot young contender from Southern California named the unsinkable Kelly Brown, a driver who gains in stature with each successful run. Before the big showdown comes, a pair of outlandish machines roll to the line to square off for the Super Eliminator title. Ron Ellis and his 1923 Model T-bodied dragster faces George Montgomery's supercharged Mustang in the championship run. Montgomery wins a tight race, running 164 miles per hour in the process. A pair of gas dragsters driven by Dominic Santucci and Phil Hobbs stage for the Top Gas Eliminator Championship. Identical to the mighty fuel dragsters, except that their engines run on pump gasoline, the gassers are nearly as quick as their more powerful cousins. Santucci wins the title when Hobbs starts too soon and red lights. The tension that is built around the top fuel eliminator race is about to unwind. Kelly Brown and Don Prudhomme are strapped into their fearsome machines and pushed toward the starting line. Cannot withstand the determined charge of Prudhomme, who wins a second Nationals crown. He streaks through the quarter mile in 6.51 seconds, hitting a top speed of 223 miles per hour. Elated at his victory, which looked so improbable in the face of his mechanical woes only hours earlier, Prudhomme celebrates with his crew and his opponent. Looking as if he's driven 500 miles rather than 1,320 feet, he stands at the top of his trade for a fleeting moment of notoriety and reward, until he and his courageous colleagues once again climb into their awesome cars to resume their relentless battle against time.
Turns to green, I can make it happen in my time machine. Time's frozen by motion, speed can almost make me blind. Need inside my helmet I'm screaming, mid smoke and fire, I'm dreaming of the someday when no time